Bill Hartzer, you are a legend. I can't believe I have you on the show. I'm so excited for this.
Great to be here. Share. I always love to share any info and knowledge that I have. So with everybody.
You've been doing search engine optimization for 25 years, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I first started building just a raw HTML site back in like around 1996, and then ended up selling that domain name for like $26,000 in 1998. And it was just a really small, HTML site. I mean, I was getting traffic, from Alta Vista and then Excite, for a little while and doing kind of some optimization. It was always about kind of keyword density at that point. And if you had the perfect paragraph, and the perfect, 13.8% keyword density on that page, and you could rank really well, really quickly.
Wow, 1998. Actually, I recently had on the Lazaro couple, and they built golf.com, and they started it in 1998, and they sold it. I forget to who they sold it for, and then in 2006 they made the first social media management tool, the first social
Sure.
media management platform, which they ended up selling to Salesforce for like $800 million.
Yep.
And they started that back in like 1998. It's like I love like speaking to veterans, people who I mean, I was a boy in 1998, and
Sure.
that's really cool. The way that I found you actually was you said this super interesting thing about local SEO, and you said it on the SEO subreddit, on the search engine optimization subreddit. And I have this like theory that if I go and record a TikTok or an Instagram reel in a cafe publicly, it makes it a lot more interesting, a lot more viral, because I'm talking in hushed tones, I'm recording in a cafe, I'm usually using my phone to record my screen, and
Sure.
so when people start watching the video, they're like, why, like, what is this guy whispering about in this cafe? You hear the background noise and the reverb. What is this guy whispering about in a hushed tone? So I wrote this script for me reading your very interesting local SEO thing from the SEO subreddit. I wrote this script, and then I went to a cafe nearby and I read the script in the cafe, which made it look very mysterious and interesting. But
Yep.
the information that you said too was crazy. And what you said was, if you want to boost your rankings with local SEO, use the driving directions feature just yourself. Use the driving directions feature on Google Maps, in the Google Maps app, and actually drive to your business. And then try to get your friends and family to drive to your business. And there's even a
Sure.
guy with 100 phones who will, like, and it's a service that you can pay for, and he will use his 100 phones to drive to your business because it boosts performance. Could you talk about that? That was so interesting.
Yeah. So actually it started out, it's kind of my idea, but it's kind of not. It kind of evolved with, a lot of ideas evolved from other things, and, say, hey, someone's doing this. Well, what if I did that and kind of change it up and, use it for my own. So basically there was a guy who in Europe somewhere, he took like 100 phones, and he took those phones, and put them all in a wagon and just walked down the street. And in fact, what he was able to prove was that there was a traffic jam. Okay, that Google actually figured out that there was so many cars there, or people there, that there was literally a traffic jam, and and Google ended up rerouting, people, because this guy was just literally, there were too many cars there. And they associated a phone and an account with essentially a vehicle or so forth. And so that kind of, got to me thinking, well, what would happen if, we know Google, really just has all this data, right? And they're always, following and so forth, and they, seeing popularity and how many, phones, are at a location. So yeah, so what I figured is, okay, what if you actually take the phone, take several phones, and Google knows that, oh, this place is popular. And we see, if literally that, this place is popular because so many people with phones during these times visit this restaurant or visit this store. We know they're tracking the data. And so why not just take, a bunch of phones and make it look like it's popular and so forth? And, would that have an effect on rankings, versus, looking at two stores, and one has all these, one's very popular and then the other one really doesn't have as many. And so then, experimenting with various things about, doing, driving directions, and actually thinking, seeing, having Google see that there's actually people, people interested in in driving and so forth. And so that kind of has evolved. There's been a couple of people who have started kind of this service where, for local businesses, that, and I've seen prices, to drive 100 phones to your, to your business, $600 to $800 or so, US dollars for a one time. And then, and they will leave some reviews and, take some photos and so forth with a few of the phones. It was kind of, there's a video out there. It's kind of hilarious, kind of funny. I mean, there's, where somebody, that person, at least one of the people has all the phones, and they have them all on speaker, and they're driving, and, you have 100 phones saying, turn left in 1,000 feet, turn left, and so forth. And as far as it's, it's kind of hilarious to see, to hear all the phones going off at the same time. But yeah, I mean, it's, that, it kind of, if we think about it, I mean, doing 100 phones or even 50 phones or 20 phones at the same time, I mean, you could consider that, gray hat, black hat, etc. But at the same time, if you want to stay clean or stay within the guidelines, I mean, in theory, just having people and asking people to, or doing it yourself, just setting up driving directions and going to your own business regularly. I mean, that, I don't see any problem with that. I mean, as far as, being, under Google's okay with Google's guidelines, and actually having, just reminding people, or just doing it yourself, or what have you, your friends, family, etc. Just doing driving directions. I mean, that's not, I don't think that would necessarily be any, against the rules, if you will, or Google's guidelines.
You would need to be logged into a different Google profile when you are driving to the business that you manage, correct?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's, I don't think that they're actually just, I don't think they're necessarily tracking that. I have an old, I mean, I have an old phone if you wanted to. I mean, I do have, a couple old, like the last phone I had, I never turned in, and the last 2 or 3 phones. And I do have, I mean, do have a Google account associated with each of those old phones, just for, testing
Oh, I'm
purposes
talking
and so
about
forth.
a Google account connected to the
Yeah.
business.
So that you're mentioning, which, what you're talking about is actually, okay, you have verified, and that's the main Google account that you're a manager of that place. I don't think it matters. I mean, it would be certainly something to test, but I don't think I don't think I don't think they're tracking that as much and associating that. I mean, in theory they could, but I don't think they're, I don't think that would matter.
I don't know if you're willing to say this, but for those listening, what are some of the services, like not that you've ever tried them, but like hypothetically, what are some of the services that you pay $600 to $800 for, and then they drive with their 50 to 100 phones to your business and leave reviews and take photos?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple different. I mean, it's mostly just kind of a couple bit different contractors and people that that are kind of doing that. It's not actually a. I don't think that any of them have actually,
A
actually
website.
even have a site or even have something, that okay, you can go and publicly sign up. It's kind of like you're in the way it kind of. There's a lot of things like this where, okay, you're kind of in the SEO community, and then you happen to know somebody, and then they say, oh, well, I'm traveling for, I'm going to this particular city, and I'm bringing all my 100 phones with. Uh, so it's more. There's nothing necessarily. Uh, yeah, there's not actually a service. Like, I mean, there are services. There's people who do it, but it's kind of like it's never even, it's like not even on Fiverr or any kind of, they don't even kind of promote it. It's kind of like, okay, well, uh, they say, oh, well, I'm going to be, in this I'm going to be doing phones in the city. And if you want me, drive by your place, then, or your client's, business and do this, then I'll do it.
Are these like people who share this on X, or are they just texting all of their SEO texting, emailing their
They
SEO
may,
contacts?
yeah. So they may just post on their Facebook profile with all their,
Okay.
connections, and say, "Hey, I'm going to speak at this conference, and by the way, I'm bringing all my phones with me."
You're probably watching this because you want customers or users or prospects for your business. Definitely customers. Users and prospects are a great way to get there. I have great news for you. I just released the most incredible program showing how to do this. It uses SEO search engine optimization to target customers who are looking for exactly what you are offering. These aren't people asking why, what, when. These are people who know what they want. They don't know the brand that's going to give it to them. And so they're looking for your brand. They're searching on Google, they're searching on Bing, they're asking ChatGPT. This method works even for ChatGPT or for Gemini or for Claude. SEO is my favorite channel because you can target people with purchase intent. People who are cash in hand, they're ready to purchase, they're ready to use, they're ready to take a call from you. This program gives an actionable plan, not just definitions and explanations. It's videos and templates that are meant to be copied and adapted for your business. It shows how to get the results that I get every day with step-by-step breakdowns. I make it super clear how to do this. It's very in-depth. Lots of people are already getting huge results from it. People are making tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from this. I hope you'll check it out. It's at compactkeywords.com. Back to the podcast.
I know that, for example, one person is near Chicago, and they probably, you could probably, if you have a business in Chicago, you could probably get them to, you could probably ask them. They also mentioned, it's very interesting when they travel that going through security with 100 phones, and they always get these kind of questions about, hey, what's why do you have 100 cell phones? But yeah, it does, granted, it does take some time to set them up and so forth. There's, you do have to, obviously make all their charged and connected. So you're probably, and then, Team Viewer is something that's pretty good to use. That you can control all the phones. And some of the, I have actually some experience, and where I had a client who was a quality assurance QA company for apps and software. And so they do, quality assurance. So basically, if you have an app, they will you can pay this company and they actually have, every kind of brand and model and OS loaded. And so there's, there's interesting software out there to control all the phones and to do, software testing and app testing and so forth. And so, there are fairly easy ways. It used to be, though, I have realized kind of lately that it's, more difficult to find phones that, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, it was like, oh, you could go to a site and you could, buy 10 phones, $7 a piece, and so forth. And it's a little bit more difficult to find them, but,
what site was that?
Yeah, there were a bunch of sites. Some of them I actually recently went out to to see about, buying some phones and maybe offering this service myself.
Really?
And even with just 20 phones. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't find any of the sites that I could, that were around, 3-4 years ago.
I think the one that I used to use was Newegg. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's, used phone, you used to be able to buy, used phones with, that already had Google accounts associated with them.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that was, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. But
Also,
even so, I mean, I do think there would be, even if you just had your friends and family and borrowed, 4 or 5 phones, I mean, I think there would be a difference, even with 5 phones, that, 5 to 10 phones. I don't think you would necessarily have to be 100, but I know that the couple of people who who I'm friends with who provide, the kind of the Black Hat service, they're more into, kind of, if they do something, they're going to do it big. They have 100 phones and make sure. And frankly, so yeah, I mean, the concept, everything, still works, and it just one of those things. I mean, one of those things.
I was thinking though about it because you think about like 50 to 100 phones doing driving directions within the same hour, and like just the velocity of very abnormal behavior for a business listing. That's like a super crazy velocity for very abnormal behavior, and then it just ends. And I suppose I could imagine a temporary boost in performance, but my question is, does this actually lead to, and I didn't want to make this podcast entirely about the strategy, but it is very interesting.
Sure.
Does this lead to like a long term, is there like a long tail effect where the business will just rank a lot better? Or like, is it like a temporary thing where it'll work for a couple of days and then things will kind of go back to where they were or in the middle of where they were?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not temporary. I mean, it's not, just for a few days. I mean, it definitely is. And, you think about, so there's, I mean, there have been, it's, I know of a business that, if anybody's from kind of the Northeast of the United States, they know Stu Leonard's, and, Stu Leonard's is a very unique, grocery store, where, you can buy, just about, everything. It's kind of like it's not a Sam's Club or a Costco or any, bulk, but it is, they have their own, have their own cows, and they, and bottle the milk right in the store. And they do, they do all the pastry and all the, cookies and, biscuits, and they all make it right there in their bakeries, right in the store. They did have, I mean, they will have promotions, from time to time, and just come to the store and, get a free donut or get a free pastry, and, put that on, they do radio commercials, on radio, come this afternoon and, get a free donut. And they've had literally, thousands, hundreds of people at the same time show up, who, have never been to the store. And so, there are, with a local business, I mean, there are, maybe, there are legitimate ways that and reasons why all of a sudden there would be, 100 people going to a restaurant or, for example, I mean, I remember even just 1 year ago where there was a small restaurant in, a very small restaurant, and somebody posted on social media that Taylor Swift was at that restaurant eating. And literally within, 30 minutes, you had, literally hundreds of people who were actually, who went to that restaurant.
Well, wait, hold on. That's the real black hat trick. You you get someone to post on social media that a big celebrity is at this location, and then everyone just goes. You don't even need to pay the person $600 to $800.
No, exactly.
Yeah, you just have someone start the rumor. Oh my gosh, I'll make videos about this. That's crazy.
Yes, well,
of course that's going to work.
So if you literally would, I mean, there's news articles that about that whole incident, that this was a small restaurant, it was New Canaan, Connecticut, and you can literally find. I mean, this is last year, like when Taylor Swift was doing the Eras tour, and literally, I don't think she was actually there. I think she was maybe in the area or happened to be in the New York City area. And it was possible that she would be there, but she, I know that she was, I don't think she was. I don't think it was ever, a sighting. But yes, there, and actually, I mean, yeah, I mean, if if my 12-year-old daughter said, "Hey, we have to go to this restaurant," I never heard of the restaurant. I'd go to Google and Google it, and then, that would be an indication, just, a search,
Bill,
and then,
not
getting
just
directions.
that. With AI, people can, I don't know if the prosumer tools wouldn't be able to do it, but maybe. But very soon, people will just be able to use AI to create fake pictures of celebrities at their places. And then you're like, oh, look, Justin Bieber was over here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just all you have to do is just actually a deep fake video on, with, and then, or a photo, I mean, it could be photoshopped, but a deep fake video with, and they just replace the head on that person. And they're sitting at the table or something like that.
You're totally right.
Yeah,
don't even need AI. They can literally just pay someone a few dollars to do it with Photoshop. Oh my gosh, that is insane. That is, you don't need to pay the $600 to $800. That is an insane hack. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's so you kind of, I mean, you take these outlier examples of, the Taylor Swift be showing up there, and all these people showing up, and then you kind of just, same thing. I mean, you take that and you kind of change it up. What if she wasn't actually there, and she goes to this other, or somebody else goes to this other location, and then. Yeah, so it definitely is, definitely is possible.
I want to change up the conversation from let's make the conversation a little bit whiter, a little bit less dark. Let's take it into the realm of what Google would be okay with. And so
sure.
I read you saying that entity SEO is so this is for people now if maybe you have a local business, maybe you don't, but you're doing search engine optimization with your website. And Bill, I read you saying entity SEO, that's what people really need to be paying attention to now. Could you talk about that?
Sure, definitely. I mean, It's, think about an entity being a person, place, or thing, a noun, anything that can potentially be a Wikipedia page. So it could be, a concept, it could be, house, real estate. It could be, uh, it could be something like, when you buy a house, there's a contingency fees, and it could be, different concepts and different things. And so essentially, when we think about, what content for your site is helpful, helpful content. And, that has obviously came up in several algorithm updates. And so, so recently, but what is, you create a page for somebody, local business. Let's say they're a home inspector or a real estate agent, but let's pick home inspector. A good example would be, before you buy a house, you get a home inspector out to inspect everything, and, so you make sure there's no roof leaks or any problems. Well, you're creating a page about that, and what would you expect to see on that page? I mean, what topics are covered? Obviously, buying a house, or word house, and inspection, inspector, real estate, buyer and seller, and so all of those are kind of, and you would even see, roof, and roof and leaks, and plumbing, and air conditioning, and all those topics. Well, all those topics that I just mentioned are entities. And so would you expect to see, if you looked at a page about that subject? And so you could actually, my concept is, when I'm creating, when looking at a site, or even going to create a new site, you can go to any AI, let's say ChatGPT. You can, what the process, the process is, and the way I do SEO now is that, okay, you can literally ask the AI, okay, I'm thinking about, creating a website about this topic. What are the pages, or what are the pages, the topics and subtopics that I need to mention on this website as a whole? And then you'll give you a list, and you can say, okay, I'm creating a page about plumbing. Okay. And plumbing service. What topics and subtopics and entities that I need to mention on this particular page. It'll give you, an outline literally of, okay, you need to mention this, mention water, and, toilet and flushing, and, all that kind of stuff. And so that's a really good use of AI now, because it kind of helps you understand that, okay, what, we're creating, we're not just optimizing a page and throwing out content. It's like, okay, we want to make a page that is the best page for, about this subject. And we want to be, I hate to say helpful, but we want to be, helpful, and have that, be helpful content, and be more helpful than our competitor pages. So you could actually, in theory, what you could do is, there are entity SEO tools where you could actually take the top 10 ranking pages and say, okay, what are the topics and subtopics and entities that those, ranking pages are mentioning? And so, guy is ranking number 1 might have, 17 entities. Guy ranking number 2 might have 10, so actually then if you combine, if you have 27 entities that are appropriate for that page, and you're probably going to rank well. Kind of that's the concept. We're still, obviously when you create the page, you're still getting, keyword and title tag. You're so kind of starting off. SEM rushes, or whatever tool you use for keyword research, that's great, and so forth. You kind of need to, understand that and related topics. I do like to use some sort of AI to tell me, like I said, give me more ideas about what I should mention on this page. And yeah, and what people are, what is considered helpful. And I think that's what probably, all these I've actually been doing this before all these helpful content updates. I can tell you that none of the sites that I did, this to and use, none of those sites got hit because I was actually, I believe that I was actually, creating, hitting all the topics and subtopics that necessary, and not really just going after, mentions and so forth of a particular keyword phrase. So I kind of see in the past, 3 to 5 years, there's been a shift kind of from, we used to do, keyword SEO where, keyword in the title tag, mention it a couple times on the page, heading tag each one, maybe bold and italics and so forth. And, have internal links and everything. But I think that, as Google's evolved in the past couple of years, or even Bing, Microsoft Bing, we're seeing that kind of a shift, and, they understand natural language a lot more. And so it just makes sense to kind of make sure that you're not just, putting your keyword in the title tag and so forth. I mean, you're the content on the page, you have enough that, that you're covering everything you need to cover.
You mentioned entity SEO tools other than just AI. Which ones would you recommend?
I actually use InLinks a lot. InLinks has kind of evolved kind of from it has a name of, InLinks as internal linking. And so that, the internal linking is based on entities and context. And, so it reads your content and actually figures out, oh, you're mentioning this topic and this is related. And so we're going to make a link from this page to that page. It does, sometimes it'll use the exact match anchor text internally. Sometimes it won't. And so that's kind of, but it's evolved to, and not only that, I mean, it's doing, additional things, like it will actually take all the top 10 ranking pages for a keyword. You put in the keyword, it will actually help you create that content and, tell you all the entities and everything you need to mention, by just starting with you give it a keyword phrase or give a phrase to that page. It'll actually go and pull all the entities from all the top 10 results, and then, help you create a page, that, that mentions all the, all the entities and so forth. And then there's also kind of an audit tool in there that you can actually run it, and it will look at your page and say, okay, well, you're missing these particular topics. So if you have a current page, just run, kind of an InLinks audit on that page, and it'll tell you, oh, you mentioned, you mentioned these, but you never mentioned, this or that. And so, literally just editing the page, adding maybe a sentence or two, mentioning those other entities, or, their topics or subtopics, saving it and, resubmitting it to Google. I mean, I've literally, the cool thing is that back, 2004, 2005, probably 20 years ago. I mean, it would take a week or two for Google to actually, call your page. But you literally now, you can make a change to I literally have made a change or actually created a brand new page and, submitted it in Search Console, and 45 minutes later to an hour later, less than an hour, it's ranking with a featured snippet. It's ranking, and, it's ranking well. And so Google's actually, really, really fast. I mean, it, definitely.
I shared the story on the podcast. This was crazy. So I was living in Kiev, Ukraine. This was during lockdowns in 2020. And the reason I even say that is because some people think that, like, depending on where you're operating the site from or where you're publishing a page, like, Google will know, and that's not really the case, or at least in this instance, it wasn't. And so I wanted to rank number one for, it was like keywords around distance learning. We have an ed tech site, and it was keywords around distance learning. And I put up this page, and the current number one ranking is the New York Times. And this blew my mind. This blew my co-founder's mind. When I share this story with other
Sure.
people, it blows their mind. I put up the page. I target the keyword exactly. Of course, it's a page that addresses search intent and addresses the keyword. It's not like some garbage page. And it was, well, it was, of course, it was human written because it was 2020. There was no ChatGPT then. 5 minutes. I submit the page to Google Search Console. 5 minutes after publishing the page, it's ranking number one above the New York Times. I know, like, that was some crazy stuff. And
Sure.
yeah, I also saw, oh my gosh, and you wrote a lot of interesting things about how to get a lot of pages indexed or recrawled fast, and you wrote about using sitemaps and creating dedicated sitemaps, which I thought was super interesting.
Yeah. So there's two things. I mean, so how do I just share? The one thing is that, you can technically put up to 50,000 URLs in an XML site file. Okay. So let's say you have a page that has, a million pages, or even 100, let's say 100,000. You would first think, oh, well, I'm just going to do 2 XML sitemaps, 50,000 URLs each. Well, it turns out that Google, the way their systems, their backend is set up, Google deals with smaller files a lot better. So you would be better off splitting that, if you have 100,000 URLs, you would be better off splitting those rather than 2 XML sitemap files, with 50,000 each. You'd be better off with 10 XML sitemap files with 10,000 URLs each, because they're smaller files and Google can crawl those sitemap files faster. And if you really wanted to, it'd be better to have 100 with 1,000 URLs, because that actually Google would crawl those faster than, they just deal with smaller files better than larger files when it comes to XML sitemaps. And so the same thing, I mean, if you have, let's say, I mean, you have a site that gets hacked, and, somebody puts in all, 10,000, spam, very spammy stuff. You're trying to clean up the site. And yeah, I mean, so you delete all the delete all that stuff. You clean up the site. Their malware is not any, all those pages are gone, everything, but they're still in the index. So what you want to do is actually create a separate XML sitemap file for all of those that are 404 errors, and literally just submit that sitemap file. And that, Google's going to crawl this XML sitemap file. And so it will just be faster for them to see all those URLs and see that they're 404s. Same thing with redirects. If you're moving, and you want them to see those faster, then, it's better to actually create an XML sitemap file with all those URLs, rather than just waiting for Google to crawl the site and eventually find pages and see the redirects, or the, same thing with the 404s, or, 410 gone, et cetera. So yeah, so that's, something that, is, especially with cleaning up sites, you want them to see as 404s. So like I said, you'd see a separate, and in fact, same with the XML sitemap files, you can put an XML sitemap file on one particular domain, and all those URLs in the XML sitemap files are actually from another site. And so you don't have to have like the XML sitemap file does not have to be with the URLs of the same site. So, that can be helpful. So, so like, let's say there are 301 redirects and you want, you've done, or, you've done the 30, set up the 301 redirects. You can make that list. You can put it on some other domain that you own and the XML sitemap file. It doesn't have to be, on on that same domain. There's some situations where, you're moving domains or something like that. And you move the domains, but you don't, like technically speaking, if you move from one domain to another, everything would be redirected. Like even if you went to the old domains, sitemap.xml, that would be redirected to the new domain. Well, if you took another, you want Google to see those redirects. So what you would do is create on another site, submit that list of the XML site, the XML sitemap file and add that. And so it'd be a separate site, but they would crawl those and see those URLs.
That's really solid advice. That's super cool, actually, especially about how Google handles large sitemap files. That was pretty interesting. You're also an expert in TLDs, and I actually wanted to
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, what are some top level domains that people should never get, and if they have, they should 301 redirect. They should like get a new TLD and 301 redirect right away. What are some, like, I have some crazy TLD stories, but I want to know, what are the TLDs that people need to stay away from?
I think it's interesting because there's only at this point, I don't think there's any that you should necessarily stay away from. The only thing that would go back is this goes back years ago, which is the .info. And, there was, this goes back probably at least 15 years or so. And Aaron, SEO book, Aaron Wall, actually, did testing at that point and really determined that, that just Google, Google just does not like .info, .info domains. I think the only thing we're gotten to a point where, they do recognize, everything. And, there are certain TLDs like .xyz that pages get crawled faster on that domain than any other TLD. But I think the only thing you kind of need to stay away from.
Why do you think that is? That pages get crawled faster on .xyz TLDs?
There's theories. That basically, I think it's overall that it's kind of my theory is that, there's been so many spam sites, if you will, created or sites that have been created on XYZ that, with hundreds of thousands of pages. And so, and you have people who have created, 100,000 or 1,000,000 page or 10 million page site. And Google's just really used to and they've done things to get those, those sites, the people creating the sites have done a bunch of stuff to make sure Google, crawls them. And so I think, you put a brand new one up, and then Google's just sees XYZ and they just, they immediately crawl it because, I think that's kind of, because of the history of it and so forth and so many others. I think one of the issues though you have to look at is things like .co and, the ccTLDs, and that, obviously if you put up a site and it's a .ca or even a .uk, it's probably not going to rank, in google.com as well. And, because, it's a .ca for Canada, and it'll rank well in in Canada, google.ca, but there's a disadvantage, to having, to trying, it's going to be more difficult to get a .ca domain to rank in, google.com. So, that's one, there, you have to look at, CC, like, .co. A lot of people do use .co, which is, and they tend, but it is for a CCTLD for Colombia. So if you just, on the default, Google thinks that the site is in Spanish. And so you kind of do have to kind of prove to them or give them some indication that your content is in English if you're going to use .co. But I think we're at the point where there are, I don't think there's really any, besides .info, I don't think there's really any real big problems. The problems, come where you're not, getting that, you're not, ultimately the problems are that you don't get that site or that domain trusted enough. And so it's kind of like, okay, it's a brand new domain. If you don't give those trust signals enough, you don't get certain links, and you don't, don't have certain pages, kind of, that's where kind of the EAT and EEAT come in. You kind of just have to get at least that site or that domain, trusted enough. And so then you can do your things with entities and create in pages. And then within 45 minutes or within a day, it's going to rank well. That's the difficult part to get over is putting up a new site on any TLD and just get it trusted enough.
What are some things that you do when a new site is started to build trust?
That's a good question. So there's certain pages. I mean, I have a list of certain pages, things like, the about page that, certain pages that I think every site needs. And that kind of comes back to, the Google AdSense requirements. If you have Google AdSense, you need to have, for example, privacy policy, terms of service, disclaimer pages, on there. And you need to have, a contact page, about us page. I do like to use organization schema markup on the about page. And that seems to help with getting a knowledge panel entry. And that is kind of one factor, if you will. And so I try and, and if you look up, trying to get, a knowledge graph into the knowledge graph, there are certain sites that are part of the knowledge graph that you would want to get a link to, or a listing on, or getting mentioned. There are even, some press release distribution. There's press release, there's, certain ones, that are part of the knowledge graph. Things like, obviously, Wikipedia page, or get, Wikipedia, a link from Wikipedia. There's, so there actually is there are lists out there, that of all the sites that literally are, part of the knowledge graph. It's actually not the Google knowledge graph. It's just, the knowledge graph, just kind of a separate organization. And so that, so you want to get into the knowledge graph, and that kind of gives you some trust. I mean, that, also includes, stuff like, a link, like LinkedIn, LinkedIn page, et cetera. So, there are, some of those. So I kind of try and focus on getting that site into the knowledge graph or the brand.
Yeah.
So there's things I would mention also, that are related, that are actually pretty important related to so let's take a law firm that is not in the knowledge graph, and they have, a law firm or, a lawyer might have a lot of really good links from sites that are in the knowledge graph, but they don't have a knowledge panel entry. They don't have that yet. And so what I've noticed is that it's consistency, and this consistency of how you're mentioning the name, the law offices of, for example, the law office of Edward. Okay. Well, then, maybe in your title tags, you mention it as the law office of Edward. Well, on your copyright notice or the bottom of the page, you mention it, Edward's law firm. And then, maybe the logo itself, the logo has like, Edward law firm, right, as the logo and the text in the logo. So there's essentially like 3 different mentions of that. So 3 different mentions. And then you look at, your schema markup, and you look at you look at things like your organization markup, organization schema markup, etc. And then your Google Place, your Google Places listing, your Google My Business listing. Okay, you have that name is maybe even different, right? And so just fixing that consistency, having the same exact name, it sounds stupid, but it's like, it's essentially the same, but that's enough. Fix that consistency across the board to get a knowledge panel. I've literally seen, been able to do that. And so it's, a lot of SEO is, technical things. It's being consistent, being, having the helpful content, having, it's a lot of different things. So the TLD doesn't matter, but you do need to make sure everything is consistent, and technical SEO really does matter.
I'll tell you my my TLD story. My TLD story is I bought a .club. I bought it, and
Yep.
things were going great with the .club. It was ranking, everything was going great. This was in 2000. This was before Elon bought Twitter. And so this was, I think I noticed this, it was like July 2022 and August 2022. And we were doing a lot of big things on Twitter, just with like a bunch of big companies and accounts. And what happened was, I guess like historically, .club TLDs were used for spam. There's tons of spam. .club TLDs were used for spam. And so the crack devs at the old Twitter blanket shadow banned any tweet in comments that mentioned a .club TLD. And I tested this with the most authoritative .club TLDs that I could find. I found the most authoritative ones that really had a lot of trust built up. And it had like, I was using masse, and it was like ones that had like 60 domain authority, and
Sure,
like really trusted ones that had like a lot of legit brand mentions. And even these were shadow banned. So if someone put one of these trusted .club TLDs in a comment on Twitter, nobody except for the author would see that comment. And so we were doing like, I think it was some giveaways, and you had to like share. We were trying to make the site viral, so you had to like share the site in comments.
Yeah.
But no one, like when you share the site, no one saw it, because the amazing developers at old Twitter just thought the best strategy was to just blanket shadow ban all tweets that mentioned any .club TLD. And it drove me crazy, because we eventually had to buy a new site and 301 redirect everything to that new site. It was so frustrating. And oh my gosh, that was my experience with TLDs. That was really bad. Okay, I actually have a question for you because I love reading interesting articles on my podcast. And when
Sure.
I discovered you, I went to your site being like, oh my God, I bet like, cause like Lars Lofgren, for example, Lars Lofgren puts up some just seriously great blog posts. And I'm like, Bill Hartzer is going to be the same way. And you had some really interesting things. Like, I think you said you were going to stop doing like a Google business profile. That was like one that I think you said
Yep.
that you were going to stop. But then I saw that like most of your articles were just clearly AI articles. And most of your blog posts were like, and I tested like with a GPT detection tool, and it was like, yep, 100% AI. And so I personally want to ask you, what is your strategy with that?
So, so my, so it's interesting because I do have, my strategy has been, I mean, I have, probably 2,000 articles, on this particular, on billhartzer.com. I have, it's been a blog for years. And, essentially I don't have enough, like super powerful SEO articles that, like discoveries, if you will, like, I've written about like, Google's date problem and all sorts of, canonical tag, negative SEO and all this stuff. I mean, my strategy has been is that, okay, typically, um, typically as I go through and do SEO, right, I come across stuff and I will actually literally, if I have time, stop at that moment and write it up as soon as I can and just get it posted out there. Right. And so that's not every day, and so forth. And so what I do though is I feel like, I actually have a couple ways where I am looking for certain type of content, whether it's, something about, the AI industry or, somebody launching a new social media app or anything like that. And so try and cover, cover that stuff. I have some really strategic over, past year or so, I've come up with a really customized prompt, set of prompts that basically allows me to kind of take a press release and that, I've already curated the topic. Like I've already gone through, every single morning, I'm checking email, I'm checking out, what new companies are, or what press releases, et cetera, are coming out. So I go, actually have journalistic access to a couple different press release sources. And so, yeah, I mean, I manually go through and, kind of, curate and figure out, okay, well, this is newsworthy enough. I mean, this is like, oh, there's a new social media app, let's say, or, somebody, so it's, new social media app. So, we're trustworthy enough. Legit and so forth. So then I use my kind of custom prompts, but like it's a prompt that has like, 20 to 30 different instructions of like how I want this article written, et cetera. And so my idea is, then I basically feed it into the press release and have, rewrite it. And then I will kind of manually edit it as needed. My idea is that I want to keep, everything fresh. And so I want to keep, I want to have Google crawling regularly. So, it could be 1 to 3 to 5 articles a day that are posted. But here's the thing is that I have kind of even a better goal. And this kind of goes way back into my, what I was doing, 2001 to 2008 or so. And you mentioned, but basically what I want to do is actually, somebody launches a new social media app. Okay. Well, if I'm one of the first to kind of write about that, like I'll actually end up ranking for that social media app and or that company name or and so forth. And so I get traffic and I actually get links and social media mentions naturally without having to do anything except for just, so let's say, say something like Twitter launches, like, no one knows about Twitter right now. And so like, okay, well, or that social media app, it's always the first one out there who actually ends up, first mentions. Then that social media app themselves may go on their Twitter account and and make, and add a link and, mention, oh, well, or they do a survey or I write about something. That company ends up, tweeting and sharing what I've
So
written
it's kind of a
about them.
backlink strategy. You share news about companies and then they share your article because they're hyped to get press.
Exactly. So here's the thing is that, so I started back in, early 2000s. My whole strategy, I actually created, I had, at one point I had, 83 to 85 WordPress sites. Okay. And they were all different subjects. Okay. And I would literally write 16 before I went to my full-time job. I was in-house at a telecom software company doing webmastering and SEO duties. What I do is I'd write, so my strategy to getting traffic was, is ranking for the company name. Okay. So basically I don't care if I'm never going to be number one. In rare cases, actually I end up outranking the company themselves because the company themselves have a horrible site, and they don't, and they don't rank where they should. However, like I don't mind being second, third, fourth, okay, and kind of piggybacking on that brand, on that company brand. Okay, this is the strategy that that fool.com uses. They write about Apple and Microsoft and they rank, second, third, fourth, fifth. They rank on the first page for Microsoft, Apple, et cetera, because they're reporting that company's news. Okay. So if you think about keywords, yeah, if I'm, everybody knows, okay, that, the company themselves, they rank number one, or they might rank 1 and 2 and have some side links, but then, set 3 or 4, I'm kind of like this independent third party that's, has written an article or written, a couple articles or et cetera, about that company. And then I can, rank and then get that in. There's a significant amount of traffic. And so, the other thing is, as far as the backlink strategy, okay, you write or about them, there's a lot of sites that will have, 2 sections on their site. They'll have a media, or they'll have, they'll have press releases and they'll post their press releases, but they'll also have a page that says in the news, and they'll literally link to bloggers and articles about where their company has been mentioned in the news. So basically you just literally write something, write something about that company and their, so my goal right at this point is, is to find stuff that's relevant to my topics, like, domain names, search engines, SEO, AI, related, and, social media. Right. And so then, I take those, and then my goal really is just a really stupid goal, is to write something. And then I like it when I get I have a Google alert for my name and my company name. So if I think, if I can write something and then every single article is unique enough that I can get it in Google's index, and then either within hours or the next day, I get a Google alert about that article, then I think I've done my job enough. Right. And so, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, 3 months and have a great, great SEO article about some, where some kind of technical discovery, that everybody loves, and then not have posted, I'm just a serial poster, serial blogger, serial writer. Like I just, my theory has always been be the first one out there, just get something out there and then go back and edit the article. And so, like for example, I mean, there was, let's look at the Hawk Tua, right? There, somebody, there was this thing about, people changing Google business profile listings, of schools, of high schools all across the world, and they're changing the name, Hawk Tua High School, and they were changing the name of all these high schools, middle schools, et cetera. It's kind of a viral thing. And so I wrote about that, and I probably, when it's first started and discovered it, I just put up an article that was 2 paragraphs about it with a screen capture. And then over time, it really, once it was out there, like I started getting links and starting, mentions, bury it at search engine roundtable, started, link to it, et cetera. And I probably updated that thing, 10 or 15 more times, over the past 6 months, with new information, et cetera, and just updating that page. So, yeah, it's always been about just get something out there. Doesn't have, it could have typos. It could be AI generated, et cetera. So what I've noticed is that so let's say, I write 20 articles that are from, kind of regurgitated stuff from press releases, and, maybe, have, that's unique enough content that gets crawled and indexed. Well, if I go back, they're out of 20, there may be 2 or 3 that are actually going to rank and get some traffic, for the company name or for, whatever the issue is, whatever the article's about. Okay, great. Then at that point, I can go back and edit stuff and so forth. And all that. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, it's all a test, to be honest with you. You got to be out there doing SEO. You got to be out there, posting stuff, posting stuff every day, seeing, I mean, how unique does an article need to be with it being AI generated to get crawled an index and get a Google alert? I think I figured that out enough with enough unique prompts, essentially to say, okay, I can literally take any press release and literally make it into a news article with all this customization, and don't mention this and do that, and do this and that and so forth, and that and the other, and it's unique enough to get in there. So, so I've learned a lot about what it takes, you can't just, literally just take, copy a press release, rewrite the title and put it in there. It's not going to be crawled and indexed. So a lot of it's one big massive test that's ongoing. And that's what I love about SEO is like, okay, well, I will know in maybe 6 months from now, all of a sudden, all those articles that I've been writing just, are completely de-indexed. Well, great. Then I'll, that's an SEO test, and I'll know, what, and deal with, how I deal with those. So, yeah. So there's,
how would you deal with that if that happened?
Say that again. Sorry.
How would you deal with that if that happened? All your AI articles get de-indexed, or maybe, because I mean, like you saw, this was, I think, about 1 year ago, 1 year's time, or around that. You saw all of these sites with tons of AI generated content getting hit. People even reported that like other properties on their Google Search Console that didn't have AI generated text, those got hit too, just because they were connected to a GSC that had like these spammy AI sites.
Sure.
I
Honestly, I
understand
do
it was
not.
like a
Yeah.
scare tactic, but like, yeah,
I
what your
don't
take?
think so I've had dozens and dozens of actually people who've come to me and say, I got hit. And you know what? And I've looked at even sites that have, that got hit. Okay. And it's not the AI content. I mean, because literally I can do, with a customized good content about, like I said, I can get it in, if it's customized enough. Yes, it is, majority of it is AI, right? I mean, and it's, it's new, irrelevant, etc. However,
Sorry to interrupt you.
um,
Let me ask you this: does, like, if a searcher lands on the page, does it read like AI, or does it actually read like it's like original written by a human? Because I like, that makes sense that Google's not gonna like blanket ban AI, but if it reads like AI and then searchers are bouncing and this isn't actually helpful because searchers are like, this was just generated by AI and not proofread. But if it reads like a human, like, I totally understand that.
yeah, no, I think it reads like a human. I mean, I think but I don't think it's, so I don't think it's that though. I don't think Google actually has, think about it. It's not, it's not the AI. What I'm saying is that it's content velocity. It is not, it has nothing to do with AI. It literally has nothing to do with AI because I don't think Google has the processing power right now to even look at a piece of content and determine, is this AI or not? I don't think they have the background tech to determine whether something is, I mean, look at, typical AI detectors,
Oh, they
like
definitely
stuff that
don't.
I've written.
The question is like, will they in the future? I would bet personally, I think they will.
At some point they probably will. But you have to, figure out that, I mean, you're talking about billions of pages, right? And, millions of pages that are created every day. And so just the sheer processing power for them to have their own AI, that's what they're dealing with right now. Okay. And then, and then to top off, they just don't have the back end to be able to determine whether it's AI or not. You have to use other signals. Okay, the sites that I've reviewed that are, that have, that got hit and got actually manual actions because of we could call it AI content, but it's because of the content velocity. Okay, these sites, yeah, they got enough trust and so forth, and then basically they, um, if you look at the site, you'll see that like in SEMrush, they went from, ranking for 100, 200 keywords to like 30 to 40,000 keywords the next month. That means that they basically in 1 month, they've added 10, 20, 30,000 or even 10,000 pages to their site that are all, unique content and good, AI content enough. And that's just it's not natural. And the only site that I know of that does natural stuff like with that, with that is is a good example is fool.com. Fool.com has literally 200 to 250 writers on staff, and each of those writers write, one is assigned to Apple and one's assigned to Microsoft, and they write 2 to 3 articles, manual articles, researched and articles per day. 200 writers times 3, you're looking at close to, 600 to 1,000 articles, new pages that site is ranking is, 30,000 articles a day with, legitimately. Now, some site that is not a major, brand or doesn't have the links and so forth, and, the brand authority, all of a sudden starts to write 10, 20,000. Yes, that's not an AI issue. That is, 15 years ago, you would have been dinged for that. It's not, it has nothing to do with AI. AI has just made it easier for us to create massive amounts of content that seem to be, fairly unique and, and kind of essentially helpful content, but Google does not have the processing power to look at billions of pages and determine whether this is AI
Well,
or not.
my question, sorry, my question is is it the velocity of rankings that flags Google, or is it the velocity of new pages being generated? Because I could give you an
Yeah,
example of like or I mean you just said it yourself, like a company goes from it's not ranking for many keywords and then the next month it's ranking for like 30,000 keywords. And so like it generated all these pages in that 1 month period. And was it the pages that, so my example is there's this tool called Adify.app. And this was like a crazy thing because in 1 year the site was created around the launch of ChatGPT. And in I think 11 months time from the site being created, the tool being created, it was ranking for like 350,000 keywords. And what it is it's a Chrome extension that people use to generate summaries of YouTube videos. And every time they generate a summary of the YouTube video, that summary is published with a nice looking page on Adify. And all the
sure.
pages are linked to from the footer with really nice information architecture. So like really clear. It's really well done, honestly. And so what happened was in up until the summer, they really weren't ranking. And then around, I was using Bright Edge to look at all of this, and it was really crazy. And then they did a press push over the summer, and then you just see them like shoot up because of the
Sure.
links. And then actually, I think like a couple months later, they removed all of these AI generated pages. But my point with this story is like their volume of pages was insane. However, I guess it's like talking it out. I guess it's like I could understand that, as they started slowly getting users to the tool, they would also ramp up naturally with the amount of pages they were generating. But I guess like, aren't there lots of sites that for like a couple of months they got away with ranking for like many tens of thousands of keywords with all these new
Yes,
pages,
definitely.
and then
Yeah, they
like
did. And
several
then,
months later they got
yeah,
hit. So
yeah. And
why
they
why
got hit.
but like the behavior is immediately strange. So why would it take them like many months to get a manual action, and why not just get the manual action like within the first month? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple of things. I mean, so you have, let's say a brand new brand that, and you have signals like links, and you have signals like, media mentions and so forth, that from the, it mentions from these trusted sites that say, okay, well, it's okay that this brand new site has, all of these, 100,000 pages or 100,000 products or something like that, and we're going to pay attention. It's those other signals that say, oh, to Google, okay, that's good, and that's legitimate. You get mentioned that, get your site get mentioned in the news and so forth, or get mentioned somewhere, you get like one link, and that's trusted enough, and that that then it's okay, like to have hundreds of 100,000 pages get crawled and indexed and so forth, right? I think there's and then I do think that there's some kind of, so I think they rolled out, some kind of other, uh, analysis. I mean, on, kind of Google's back end is, I mean, and that there's some kind of, they put in some kind of new factor, if you will, and some kind of, that and analyzes this and says, okay, well, this particular site, has not,
You're saying it wasn't a problem until it started being a problem, and then they took care of it, and that's why some sites were able to get away with it for a couple of months.
yeah, or yeah, for a while. Yes.
That makes plenty of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Google's a wild beast. Also, I really liked what you said about like actually just doing SEO. So like I worked at Dentsu Aegis for a while. I'm sure you know Dentsu, and I was doing SEO for, I don't know, Fortune 100 companies. And a huge problem that I had with all of my colleagues, and I never verbalized this to them, but like they weren't doing SEO. When the day ended, when the office day ended, like they went to a bar and they like partied and they got drunk and they just like, or they went home and they watched TV. For me, when my office day ended, I started the New York City search engine optimization meetup group. So I was either like going and meeting with people there, or I was going home and doing SEO on my own site or for my own clients. And like, I was just like, and I loved doing it. It was like so much fun. And like for all these other people, like I guess to them, it was a job. And as a result, I got so much better than them so fast. In fact, like the only
Sure.
person who like the person at the company who was better than me for a while, and I think I surpassed him, but he was my mentor, still is a mentor. He did SEO outside of the office as well. He ended up becoming head of SEO at Omnicom. Dude became like one of my close friends, personal mentor. He became
Sure.
head of SEO at Omnicom. And like outside of the office, he was also doing SEO. But with that job also, it's like, how well can you sell SEO in order to get a position like that? It's not just about how proficient you are, though he was very proficient. And it's like, you got to be doing it. And that's like something that a professional, like corporate professional SEOs, a lot of them are not doing it. And I completely understand when you're like, well, I'm running experiments, I'm doing SEO,
Sure.
it's fun for me. And I completely relate to that. I completely understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if
Yeah.
you've never if you've never gotten have your own personal site or have a site, get a manual action before, or get, do something and all of a sudden, it stops ranking and all the pages get dropped out, or, all of a sudden it's doing really well. I mean, you kind of need to know, and then understand that line. Not that you're going to take your the corporate site and get even close to that line, but you also have to understand it's not just about your site, it's about what other people are doing and why other sites are ranking the way they are, and how, why they're ranking for 100,000 keywords versus where you're ranking, for half of that. And so, it's kind of, it's not, SEO is not just doing your own site. It's looking at competitors. It's looking at, the whole landscape for those particular keywords. Uh, and so, yeah. And it's a challenge. I mean, it really is. There's, it seems like, SEOs, will be around for maybe 5 years and they'll just give up because SEO is not easy. I mean, it's,
I saw you write that. Most SEOs
it's
only
5
make it for
years.
five
Yeah.
years and then
Change.
they
I
give
mean,
up.
it's changed in 5 years. It has changed so much of everything that I do. It's made it easier. Um, AI has made kind of certain things easier, but, at the same time, it's changed a lot. And like I said, you need to, keep up on your, to be relevant. You really need to understand and actually do it.
I'm gonna ask a different question now. You wrote, and I'm just having so much fun talking to you. So sorry if this is
Sure.
longer than expected. I'm enjoying this a lot. I mean, you are sharing crazy wisdom. Like I hope people listening and watching just like appreciate this. This is like insane wisdom that you are sharing. You wrote, and this is not on the topic of SEO, but I want to ask you anyway. You wrote how to make money with your social media influence in 2013. You wrote this book in 2013.
Sure.
What's the biggest like Pareto principle? Like, what are the biggest changes that are most meaningful for you in how that's changed in the last 12 years?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, in that, I mean, if you combine social media and, I see it as, creating content and using social media as as a way to get the word out on your content. I think, with that in particular though, I mean, I think that, two things have changed. I mean, people now are just going right to social and creating content. right? And what they don't realize is that unfortunately that content, whatever, even if it's great content, it can be taken down. So they don't, so they created content and they've gone live on TikTok, or they, made a video and uploaded it to TikTok. They don't realize that really they need to actually put that, that they're doing the content for that platform. And yes, they're making money and so forth on that platform, but I've seen people's, entire channel, be wiped out overnight, and it's devastating. And so it comes back to, okay, you need to own your own domain name and have your site, and then put that content on there, and actually try and, get people, use social to get people to your platform, which is your domain name and website. And same thing with, Facebook pages. So I think that it's great that somebody's going on, social and doing, some kind of uploading a video or whatever, and, making any money, but people don't realize that they don't, that once they've uploaded that, they don't really own the content anymore. It's theirs, even though they're making money. And that's kind of, the change the same thing. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, well, if you looked at kind of, a couple of years, like 2-3 years ago, I was looking at the top, looking at lists of the top 10 top 10 or top 20 mommy bloggers, right, of 2023 or whatever. And this was in 2024, right? I mean, basically of the top 20 mommy bloggers that were named, like 18 of them, those domains were like expired, and those domains didn't even exist anymore. And it's like, oh, well, they'll do something, and, they'll people create a site and so forth. And like, so there's, and then, it doesn't work. They make a little money, and then, it doesn't, they don't have, maybe have one video that goes viral or one post that goes viral and so forth. And it's just not, consistent. What I'm saying is that, it does take time. I mean, it does take, and you get to build up authority, to get links, to get, get mentions, to get people to say, hey, if someone get to a point where someone says, hey, if they make a post, you can't go viral overnight, really, by just creating a new account and expecting, to go viral. I mean, there's outliers, but social media actually is a tool to enhance your brand and enhancement. I don't think it is, I mean, people are doing it wrong. I think these, the people, oh, well, they go, they, like I said, they go on and they will, just post, and they don't even have, I think the biggest mistake that the social media influencers now are making is that they're not, they don't have a website. They don't have a domain name. They don't secure the domain name. They don't, they're not ultimately driving people to their, to their brand and places that they own.
That's what I love about SEO is like real SEO is actually like building a brand, building a trusted domain, and then you can do other things with that. And part of building a trusted domain is like it's using lots of other marketing methods, and it's not just SEO, and it's you're active on social and all of these things. And
Sure.
I like actually something that I always say is like when you understand how SEO works, or when you understand how Google works, you understand how the entire internet works. And like, I'm pretty viral on social media. And I think one of the reasons I'm good at social media is because I'm pretty good at SEO. And it's like, I understand how the algorithms work. And so many algorithms copy lots of aspects of Google's algorithms. And
Sure.
like, there's so many, and actually that brings me to my last question. And this
Yep.
was a debate on the SEO subreddit. I don't know if you saw it. but it was backlinks versus engagement. And somebody asked, what's more important, backlinks or engagement? And this was a scenario. So you have website A. Website A is ranking for the keyword, and then website B. I don't know. Maybe it's on like page 2, whatever. Website B gets a bunch of backlinks. Some are exact match, and then it's ranking number 1 for the keyword, and it's pretty fast. So website B gets like all these backlinks, pretty good backlinks, exact match, ranking number 1 for the keyword. But website A is a better page. It satisfies search intent more. Searchers go to it. They pogo stick less. They're bouncing less. They're on the page. They're clicking through to other pages on the site. They're scrolling, and mainly they're not returning back to the SERPs. They're not returning back to Google to keep looking. Whereas with website B that got the backlinks, that's now ranking number 1. What, like, searchers are bouncing. It's not that great of a page, and searchers are bouncing. And so the question that this person asks was, if website B wasn't as good of a page as website A, but it got all of these backlinks, would it eventually lose position 1 in Google? Would it go down, and would website A then rank number 1 again? And I'm going to ask you that question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, couple things. I think that in the short term, yes, the links are going to, are going to be there. We know that there is, some over time. We know there's things, there is link rot. So eventually, if that site gets, that even if, it's a great link on, CNN or Forbes or whatever, it's eventually going to get kind of buried a little bit. It's not going to be like, it's going to be further, those links are going to be, further more clicks from the homepage. And so it's kind of after over time, I think the authority or the trust of those links, the further it gets from the homepage, it's kind of, and the less traffic going to those, through those links, it's going to decay over time. And then, there's going to see certain, they'll eventually just lose some of those links. So I think that, overall, unless you own all the links in your own private blog network or your own network and you control all those links, there's going to be link rot, and it's going to, just naturally they're going to lose. And so I think there's, the other thing is that there's, okay, you can get those links and yes, it will rank really well. But over time, we have so many other analysis that goes on. So like Google's going to say, oh yes, it's great that these have links and it's going to rank well. But then the parts that are looking at the content, looking at click-through ratio, looking at engagement and so forth, those don't run all the time. So you have this freshness factor that, okay, you get some new links and you get, and there's, and it'll rank well, the one that has the links, but over time, then, weeks go by, it might be 2 or 3 weeks. Then Google will eventually look at other factors like, engagement on the site, look at content and so forth. Cause they don't run like Google's not running every single analysis, like every single day, on sites. And so it's spread out. And so basically ultimately over time, I do think though, that because of naturally over link, with link rot and so forth.
All right. I'm going to make it a bit trickier for you. I'm going to make it a bit trickier.
Okay.
Let's say that website B with the links, but it's just a worse page, does not satisfy search intent nearly as well.
Sure.
But it's continually getting links. Then will it stay at number 1, even though website A is the better page, with like all the other metrics are surpassing website B, but website B continues to get links. So will it stay at number 1?
No, I think eventually, I think it's, I think that we're at this point where we're where links are becoming less and less, relevant and less important. Like Google really does want to get to a point where like they're not relying on links as much. So kind of there's less and less. On the flip side, I've literally have a site that, yes, it's trusted. It has one or two really good trusted links, and I'm able to create, really optimize, using entity SEO, go that particular page. I can create a page and I can outrank all these, these brands that have all these really good links because my content is really good. And so I think that so I don't think it's about links anymore. I think that, I think the emphasis now is yes, I mean, I can totally even if it's getting new links, I could totally still outrank it with better content on that page.
I completely agree. I was happy to hear you say that, because that's my belief as well. And I think, because you would see in the comments for this post, people are like, links are everything, and it's just like some people are just, they're gonna die on that hill. But like, I don't know if, from my experience, the experience of like so many other people that I respect, like engagement matters a lot. And I mean, it's similar to TikTok. You have a bad video. You have a video where people are just swiping away in the first 3
Sure.
seconds. TikTok's not going to continue to recommend that video. Bill, you are a genius. I seriously have so much respect for you. And I mean, I'm sure you have like so many more crazy, interesting things to say. I am so grateful that you took the time to come be on the show.
Sure.
And to share all of this stuff. Stick around, because after I say the conclusion, it's going to finish uploading your video. But everybody who's listening, everybody who's watching, thank you so much for watching, for listening. This is episode 608 of The Edward Show. 608 days
Great.
in a row doing this podcast.
Yep.
608 podcasts in a row. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening, for watching. Bill Hartzer. Oh, Bill Hartzer. Where should everybody find you? Can't forget that.
Yeah, I mean, you can Google my name, obviously, but Hartzer.com was luckily I was able to get my, lastname.com back in 2001 or something like that. So Hartzer.com is great. And I am pretty much known as B Hartzer. I've used that same name consistently across the board on just about every platform.
There you go. He is a great follow and a great person to pay attention to. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you as well. And I will talk to everybody again tomorrow. Bye now.